Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the second ever Alviman Old School Wrestling Review. Let's adjust that just a little bit. Nah, so it's on me. Okay. In this one, I've decided, I mentioned this in one of my previous videos, that I'm starting on the Royal Rumbles. Starting with the very first Royal Rumble from 1990. No, that's wrong. From 1988. 1988 Royal Rumble starts with Rick Rude versus Ricky Steamboat in what was a decent technical match, but really way too slow. And here's what they did. Sorry, I'm in my position. Here's what they did. Really slow. They kept going in. Rick Rude really kind of dominated most of this match. Steamboat kept trying to speed it up, and then Rude would just grab him, take him, put him in a side headlock, and just hold him down. Just, it's stupid, really. He would just hold him in that side headlock, or he'd go into, like, an armbar standing over him, and he'd hold him down. And it was what they call a wear-down move, but really all it did was really slow the match way, way down. And I don't know how long it went, but if you ask me, it was too damn long. Now, both of these guys are capable of putting on a really good match, but I mean, it wasn't that good, and then right at the end, you start to get a little bit of speed. Rude goes for a clothesline, misses. And then Steamboat did something, he knocked him down. And then Rude's getting back up, comes across, Ricky Steamboat goes up to the top, jumps off with a flying cross body, pins him, 1, 2, 3. I give this match 2.5 stars. I mean, it could have been a much better match. Both of these guys, and a lot of people have said, at least, and I agree, at least up until WrestleMania 25, that the greatest WrestleMania match ever was Ricky Steamboat versus Randy Savage at WrestleMania 3, which proves that Ricky Steamboat can put on a really good match, although now the greatest WrestleMania match ever is WrestleMania 25, Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. Yeah, that's right. Alright, moving on. Second match. And for anybody who didn't know, at the time, they had the women's tag team champions. As well as the regular plain old tag team champions. That was the Glamour Girls. Was Judy Martin and forgot our tag team partner's name. And they faced the Jumping Bomb Angels, red and pink, because apparently Vince and Jesse the Body Ventura didn't know their names, which I thought was kind of funny. This match was actually kind of interesting, and just a note, and I don't mean this to be sexist, but the women wrestlers back then were kind of ugly. The Asian girls, the Jumping Bomb Angels, who were Asian, Chinese or Japanese or something like that, I'm not really sure which, but doesn't matter either way. They weren't too bad, but the Glamour Girls, they were a little hard on the eyes. They were, I think, a little past their prime at that point. I mean, you go back to, like, the days of the Fabulous Moolah and Mae Young back in their day. They were actually beautiful. They were pretty damn hot back in their day. Now, as they got a little older, obviously Mae Young's not as attractive as she was. In fact, she's not really very attractive anymore at all, but hey, Mae Young is still awesome. She always gets a great laugh, if nothing else, whenever she's on. There we go. But anyway, back to this match. It was kind of back and forth. The Glamour Girls were obviously the power team. They used a lot of power moves, went back and forth, and any chance that the Jumping Bomb Angels would get, they would go to more fast-paced, high-speed type moves. And in the end, and this is also a 2 out of 3 falls match, by the way. The first fall, the Glamour Girls win with kind of a simple roll-up. Actually, that's not right. Well, they won the first fall. Let's just leave it at they won the first fall. Doesn't matter how they won it. They won the first fall. Wasn't the most impressive first fall. The second fall the Jumping Bomb Angels won. And then in the end, the Jumping Bomb Angels get the third fall with, if I remember correctly, another flying cross body, as we saw in the first match. That's okay. Oh, and the Glamour Girls also had their manager, Jimmy Hart, who didn't do anything in this match. But overall, I gave this match 3 stars because it was actually an interesting match. It was a decent match. Now, I think that the women wrestlers, the female wrestlers, at this point, really up until like the mid-90s, when we really started to see the women's division start to get a little bit bigger and better, until you got to when Chyna started to, got in and became the women's champion. And right around there, the women's matches actually started getting really good. But from this point, up until then, women's matches weren't really that great. Women's matches were actually pretty bad, to be completely honest with you. And I'm not trying to be sexist. That's just my opinion. They weren't as good as a lot of the other matches. But moving on. And this kind of threw me off. The third match on the card is the Royal Rumble match. That's interesting. But we've seen this before. Well, not necessarily the third match on the card, but we've seen before, well, we would see later, much, much later on, where they would have a few Rumbles where they would actually have the main event match after the Rumble match. Case in point, you have Royal Rumble 2000. Wow, that was interesting. Where you had Mick Foley and Triple H in their hardcore anything goes street fight match that was after the Rumble match. And then also in 1998, to go back a little bit, Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker, the casket match, happened after the Royal Rumble match. But, and just a little coinkydink, this wasn't actually a pay-per-view. This was a just a regular nationally broadcast kind of weekly show type of deal. It wasn't pay-per-view. Although at that point, I don't know that they had actually done that yet. As I recall, the first 3 WrestleManias weren't pay-per-view, and I apologize. Maybe it's just me, but it appears that my camera has gone loopy. That's a little better. Anyway, 20-man Rumble was actually a decent Rumble match. Wasn't a great Rumble match, but, you had, good. Bret Hart and somebody else who, for the life of me, I cannot remember, started the match. And Bret Hart ended up staying in the match the longest in this match. Bret Hart lasted the longest at 26 minutes, which was the better part of this match. He got a little bit past the halfway point before he finally got eliminated. The winner of this first Royal Rumble is Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and it actually was kind of impressive. Jim Duggan came in... One moment. Oh. Okay, so the first Royal Rumble... Oh, it was Bret Hart and Tito Santana that started it. Then the Natural Butch Reed came in. He was the third elimination. Or actually, he was the first elimination, I should say. And Jim Neidhart... Jim Neidhart came in, and then... I think it was Tito eliminated Butch Reed. And Jim Duggan came in number 13, so just before... Well, actually... just after the halfway point, being as there were only 20 participants. So... He came in number 13. I'll get this right eventually. And the last person he eliminated was the one-man gang. And they built up the one-man gang. He's kind of one of these big guys. He's big, dominant guy. He's a huge guy. Weighed probably at least 500 pounds. It looked to me like he was at least relatively close to the same size as Yokozuna. And there you have that. But Hacksaw won. He ran up. The one-man gang ran at him. He ducked the one-man gang, clotheslines him, and then runs up and clotheslines the one-man gang up and over the top rope. The one-man gang really eliminating himself. But there you have it. And then, of course, moving on, the fourth, and that was I gave that one 3.5 stars because it was a decent match. So, the fourth match and the final match on the card, sorry about that pause, was the Young Stallions versus the Islanders. Haku and the other guy, Samu, maybe? Sata, something. I don't know. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. But there you have it. Let me just make sure I had that right. Yes. And this is also a 2 out of 3 falls tag team match. The first fall, the Islanders get the first fall. Haku ducks and pulls down the top rope, and Paul Roma and Jim Powers are the Young Stallions. Paul Roma, who was going after Haku, gets low bridge because of Haku's ducking and pulling down the top rope, and he landed weird on his, I believe, his left leg. He came down weird, wrenched the crap out of his left knee. So the Islanders get the first fall. With a low bridge. And then they take a pause, they take a commercial break, and they come back, and the Islanders are standing in the ring waiting for the Young Stallions to come back, and the announcers, Vince McMahon and Jesse Ventura, are talking about, well, are the Stallions going to come back? Can Paul Roma continue? Well, Paul Roma comes back out limping. They had taken off his knee pad. They had his knee wrapped and braced as tightly as they could with what they had. And Jim Powers takes over in the ring, and the Islanders just beat the piss out of him. I mean, he's just getting his ass whooped in the ring for probably a good 5 or 6 minutes, 7 minutes, something like that, before he finally manages to get over to his corner, at which point the announcers are going, at which point Jesse Ventura is going, is it a good idea for him to tag in his partner? Can Paul Roma continue? Is it possible? He tags in Paul Roma gets in, and immediately, I believe it was Haku was in the ring, going right after that left knee, and just takes him down and then just starts stomping on the knee. Turns him over into a Boston Crab, which apparently wrenches on the knee, which is a surprise to me. It always seemed like it was more of like wrenching on the back. But whatever. Let's see. So, Paul Roma taps out. The Islanders get the second fall by submission. That is the end of the match, the end of the show. It's not a pay-per-view. Remember, that ends the very first Royal Rumble. Moving on to Royal Rumble 1989. We have start off the 1989 Royal Rumble with a 6-man, 2 out of 3 falls tag team match. Anybody else noticing that there's a lot of tag team matches at Royal Rumbles? Because I am. But, anywho, Dino Bravo and the fabulous Rougeau brothers versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Hart Foundation. The first fall going to Dino Bravo and the Rougeaus. After a lot of double teaming, getting the rest of the attention over here, and they cheat and get another double team, they get the first fall. And then the Hart Foundation finally starts to get their tag team thing going. And they caught, I believe it was one of the Rouges, I believe it was Ray Rougeau, in a double team move. Bret Hart gets the pin for the 1-2-3. They get the second fall. Actually, it might have been Duggan. Might have been Anvil. But don't take my word either way. I should have written that down, and I didn't. However, the third fall of the match, because after the second fall now, you're even up at 1-1. Third fall, Dino Bravo gets tagged in. He lays out. Bret Hart gets laid out. He goes after Jim Neidhart. Jim Neidhart gets knocked down. Dino Bravo goes back into the wrong corner, back into Duggan's corner. Duggan whacks him in the back of the head with a 2x4, and then hides the 2x4 behind his back, where everybody behind him can see it. Not that that really matters, because the referee can't see it. And Jim the Anvil Neidhart pins Dino Bravo, and Duggan and the Hart Foundation win the match. The next match, and I do apologize, in my previous video I didn't get to watch, was Rockin' Robin versus Judy Martin for the women's title. Rockin' Robin beat Judy Martin. Let's see here, let's go back to... Judy Martin, let's see. Martin hit a scoop slam on Rockin' Robin. She only got a 2 count. And then you have Sensational Sherry, who was at ringside for this match, says, both ladies look like they're under the weather. And they, you know what, they actually kind of did a little bit. But then Rockin' Robin hits a DDT out of, like, nowhere, and then she misses an elbow drop. Martin misses an elbow drop. Robin then gets up first. The fans just start cheering. They don't really go ballistic or anything. They just start cheering. She grabs Martin, scoops her up, or at least attempts to scoop her up like a scoop slam. Didn't quite get there. Martin turns the tables, slams Robin down. Slams Robin, only gets a 2 count. We got a backslide by Judy Martin. Only a 2. Only a 2. Irish whip by Martin. Then Rockin' Robin comes off with a boot to the throat. Then she gets a small package out of nowhere. And she kind of like punched her, hit some right hands, nailed Judy Martin. She Irish whips her into the turnbuckle. And Judy Martin kind of walks out into the middle, and she jumps from the other side, hits a flying crossbody. Sherry starts screaming, "No, no!" Rockin' Robin gets the pin. Not a great match, but you know, overall, I think... And that was only just the end of the match that I just mentioned there. So, there you have that. Rockin' Robin wins. I give this 2 stars. The first match, I'm actually going to call it a 3.5. I enjoyed the first match a lot. I obviously didn't have much more commentary than that. The third match was really kind of a slow match. It wasn't great, and Harley Race is another one of those guys. This match was King Haku, as apparently he's been made King Haku now, versus the original King Harley Race. Or just Harley Race. And Harley Race is another one of those guys, as I was starting to say before, like Ric Flair. I've never really been excited to see one of his matches. And not for nothing. It's not that Harley Race doesn't put on a good match. That's just the way I feel. He wasn't really in my era of wrestling. My era started probably a year or so after this. I started probably 89 or 90. I would have been 3 in 89. So, maybe, yeah, something like that. No. I would have been 5 in 89. So maybe, yeah, right around here was about time. Anyway, I digress. This was a slow kind of a match. The match sort of ends. Harley Race whips him in, nails him with a big high knee. He thinks he's got Haku ready. He goes to hit him with a huge clothesline, swings, misses. Haku ducks under, turns, hits him with the big reverse thrust kick, which is kind of just a standing, not moving version of a super kick. Gets down, pins him, 1, 2, 3. King Haku wins the match. I'm going to give it about a 2-star, 2.5. No, I'll stick with 2 stars because it was too slow. And the speed of the match loses at about a 0.5 star. It could have been a 2.5. Actually, it loses another 0.5 star because of a few little botches that are in there that I didn't mention. But still, that was the 3rd match on the card. The 4th match, and let me just make sure that I'm not totally retarded. Final match on the card. Yes, there were only 4 matches. There was a lot of there was one thing that I didn't mention in this. There was a pose down. It's not really a match. It was Rick Rude versus the Ultimate Warrior. Honestly, I believe Rude should have probably won the pose down thing, but the fans felt like Warrior, who did have an impressive physique, don't get me wrong. I just don't like Warrior. But there was a lot of commentary, excess commentary, like promos and stuff that didn't need to really be there. You had the 2 out of 3 falls match, then they go and they show superstars getting their numbers for the Royal Rumble match. Then they do the pose down. Then you get to the 2nd match. Then you go and you have one of the guys in the back is talking to some more wrestlers. Then you have Gene Okerlund talking to Rick Rude and Bobby Heenan about what happened before. Then you have some managers who talk about what's going on, what's going to happen in the Royal Rumble. Then we get to King Haku and Harley Race, the 3rd match on the card. Then a few more words from Royal Rumble participants, slowing this shit way the hell down, come on. Okay, so, moving on, finally, the 4th and the final match on this card, the Royal Rumble. The first 2 participants, Axe and Smash, they go at it for a while, and of course their tag team partners, being that they're Demolition. Andre then comes out number 3. They both immediately go to Andre, start just pounding on him. Doesn't really affect him much because it's Andre. Then we move all the way down to number 7. Jake the Snake Roberts comes in. And at the time, Jake Roberts and Andre were having a huge feud. Now, they both went for a while till Andre eliminated Jake Roberts. Jake Roberts stares at him looking all upset, and you've seen this 100 times in Royal Rumbles. And then he leaves it, but he comes back a few minutes later with his snake. Jumps in the ring, throws the snake in the ring first, then jumps in the ring. Andre sees the snake, and he runs for the top rope on the other side of the ring, goes over the ropes, out of the ring, eliminating himself. And then after that, there wasn't really a whole lot that was really exciting that happened. Hogan entered at number 18. He got eliminated, though. Wasn't even really in there for all that long, honestly. He eliminated the Macho Man accidentally, or supposedly accidentally in any case. And we come to the end of this. The final 2 guys in the match are Big John Studd and the $1 Million Man. $1 Million Man trying to plead with Big John Studd, saying, "Look, I'll pay you anything you want, man. I'll give you all the money you want. Just don't throw me over. Just go." And Big John Studd just goes, grabs him, flings him out of the ring. Big John Studd wins. 2nd Rumble winner in history. Now the man who lasted the longest in this Rumble, because I always like to mention this, was Mr. Perfect. Lasted 28 minutes, 2 minutes longer than Bret Hart before. I give the 1988 Rumble, about 6 stars out of 10. 6 out of 10. I'll give this one probably about the same, 6 out of 10. No, maybe, actually, you know what? I'm going to give the 1988 Rumble a 5 out of 10. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. And I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10 because it was just a little bit better. But anyway, that's all for me right now. I'll see you guys again later in my next video, which will be the 1990 and perhaps 1991 Royal Rumbles, who I can already tell you had the same winner. That is correct, the same man won both. The first time that anybody won back-to-back Rumbles. But more on that when I get to it, and until then, I'm Alviman1. Peace out.